And joining us in the GB News studio is the GB News economics and business editor, Liam Halligan. Liam, we have heard two huge tax-cutting headline measures. Everyone at home will know what they are. The cut to business investment, making that exemption permanent, but also national insurance. I want to talk to you about other things, however, in the budget. What were the other little bits and bobs that might affect people at home?
It's a pretty meaty statement that we've got here. The national minimum wage was increased. It was increased from $10.42 an hour to $11.44 an hour. And also, it was extended, so it now applies to 21 and 22-year-olds and not just people who are 23 years and older. That is quite interesting, trying to give the younger generation something, a reason to vote Conservative, if you like. The pension triple lock was confirmed, so basic state pension is going to go up 8.5% from April 2024. That's worth about £900 a year for recipients of the basic state pension. We had the development of a strategic manufacturing fund, something that the Chancellor's been working on with Business Secretary Kemi Badenoch. The government has announced £4.5 billion of government investment by 2030, focused on automotives, aerospace, clean energy, life sciences. You'll know that in America, Joe Biden's got what he calls his Inflation Reduction Act. Yeah. Tens of billions of dollars going into various green technologies there. This is the UK's response. We're not going to become subsidy junkies, in the words of various ministers, but we are going to try and provide some kind of incentive for big-ticket investment here in the UK.
Subsidy junkie, I like that.
Then you've got the extension of the investment zones and the free ports, which the Chancellor announced back in March. There are going to be new investment zones in the West Midlands, the East Midlands and Greater Manchester, and the tax breaks that are available in those investment zones and free ports are going to be extended from 5 years to 10 years. To be honest with you, I didn't know that they're only for 5 years.
Yes.
So that was quite interesting. Business rates, this is a major bugbear for lots of business owners. You pay business rates not just before you've made any profit, as the Chancellor said, you pay business rates before you've taken any revenue in at all, because they are a tax on the rateable value of your business premises. The Chancellor's going to freeze the small business rate multiplier for another year.
And this is really going to help businesses like pubs, businesses,
and in particular,
service sector economy.
He's extending the retail and hospitality relief, so no business rates for retail and hospitality for another year. That's a kind of lockdown measure that's been extended. In terms of other things that are going on, we've talked about the benefits upgrade, working age benefits. They're up 6.7% from next April.
Which is higher than was thought they could have been raised by.
Indeed, because it's tradition that you raise benefits by the September inflation number, but because the September inflation number was very high at 6.7% and the October one was much lower at 4.6%, there was speculation, some of it coming from the leader of the opposition's office, we must say, that the Chancellor may use that lower October inflation number of 4.6%. He didn't. He stuck with the 6.7%. That means for around 5 million low-income households, that's worth about £470 a year to them, those benefit upgrades. That's separate from the state pension. These are working age benefits.
So it's people on benefits, as well as pensioners, as well as people in work, on average, now all getting above inflation pay rises.
And I wonder, I'll have to look at the fine print, where the cuts are, where the cuts in spending are. As you and I were discussing earlier, Tom, the tax burden is going up, but it's going up by less than it would have done had we stuck with the measures in March.
To that point, he did talk about public sector productivity, perhaps some slashing of government departments was there. We hear about that a lot from the Conservatives. Whether we see it actually happen is another thing.
What you sometimes do as Chancellor is you bank on future productivity improvements, you bank on efficiencies, you bank often on, lowering tax evasion so you get more money in, and then you spend those gains before you've even made them. I'm sure there's a little bit of that going on here.
He said 0.5% increases on productivity year on year in the civil service, which matches what goes on in the private sector. Do you think that's achievable?
It's going to be difficult when you've got so many civil servants, frankly, working from home, refusing to come in. I mean, we hear about deals being done to convince civil servants to come in on Tuesdays, Wednesdays and Thursdays.
That spells an acronym.
Yeah, that spells an acronym.
In the good old days, you used to do what your employer told you, didn't you?
In the real world, the 4/5 of us who work in the private sector often don't have those choices, as well as the sort of, massive pensions and benefits that come from public sector work. But, I do think it'll be difficult to make those productivity gains in the public sector, but we live in hope. I think another interesting thing is, from those tax burden numbers, Tom, which we were discussing, the tax burden is going up. You'll remember at party conference, Tory party conference, when I chaired an event with Liz Truss and her Growth Commission, you had members of her Growth Commission, some of them still sitting MPs, saying that there is a group of 50 to 60 MPs who support a lot of her proposals. They don't want her to come back as party leader, but they support her kind of low tax, pro-growth agenda, an agenda which we must say, albeit with the Office for Budget Responsibility's blessing, Jeremy Hunt has just copied and pasted himself, to use a phrase that he fired at Rachel Reeves several times. But at that Growth Commission event in Manchester at the Tory Party conference, various MPs said publicly that there were 50 or 60 Tory MPs who would not vote for the autumn statement if it increased the tax burden. Now, if the government can't get its finance bill through the House of Commons, that's a confidence issue. So will they make good on that commitment? Will the awkward squad of MPs Liam, on the Tory right say we're not going to vote for this?
Perhaps even more important than what the overall tax burden is where it lies and where it falls. Who does it affect? Now, it's difficult to say exactly how the tax burden is spread across the public, but who's paying proportionately the most tax? Well, are lower income people, has their tax burden gone down, or are they being trapped in higher tax rates?
Well, I agree with you. What really happens to people at home, what really matters to people at home is how their tax burden is influenced. But I put it to you that what matters politically is if the right of the Tory party is going to give the Chancellor a break and the benefit of the doubt, or if there's going to be a campaign of, sabotage and we don't like this package of measures. And I think that's why they've put the tax cuts so front and centre, with the business rates tax cut, with the full expensing tax cut, which they're describing
this, of course,
as the biggest tax cut for business in half a century, and with national insurance. But I think Emily's onto something. It is true that if you lower the starting rate of national insurance, then that is going to disproportionately benefit lower income workers, because more of their wages, if you like, are at that lower level, and so that will benefit them. And it will be very, very difficult for Labour to oppose this. Rachel Reeves did point out that only recently Chancellor Sunak raised national insurance in order to pay for more NHS spending, and now they're lowering national insurance 18 months later.
Well, Liam, keep poring over the Treasury documents, the OBR documents. We want to find all of those nuggets of information.